Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and note smash up video today, starting with Oleksandr Usyk, who's taunted Tyson Fury online with his diet, eating a burger and having a Coke, well, at least saying that he's going to. So these two are expected to have a fight for Undisputed, but the negotiations still continue as I record this video. But we've heard from Tyson Fury and his promoters Bob Arum and Frank Warren that something is imminent. An announcement is expected soon. But it's undisputed. Let's hold our breath, but let's see what Usyk is saying in this clip.
Belly, look what I'm eating. Nyam, nyam, nyam. You're next.
Meanwhile, WBO interim champion Joyce, who's fought Oleksandr Usyk in the amateurs, he says his preference would be for Tyson Fury to win that fight with Usyk should it occur. He says it depends on who wins. Obviously, if Fury wins, he probably will, and I'm not writing Usyk off because he's a tough fighter and skilled and would give Fury some problems. But yeah, ideally, I'd like to fight Fury next, especially if he wins. That would be an undisputed fight. That would be crazy. And he continues, but I know Usyk doesn't want to fight me either, saying something like, I'm a tank in there. We just have to see what happens in the heavyweight landscape. I'm just going to get a fight on in April and lead into a big fight in the summer. And there is heavy speculation he will be facing Zhang Jilei in his next fight in April, but that is not confirmed at this point. Neither is a fight between Anthony Joshua and Jermaine Franklin, but Franklin posting to his social media, I'm ready for all the smoke. Big news coming up this week. I don't play box. Time for the 989 assassin to take aim on body count number 22, April 1. And then adding a bunch of people. Now, Jermaine Franklin's been here before in terms of having a deal negotiated, in terms of his side of the deal being confirmed, and then the other side not fulfilling their end and not signing their end of the paperwork. And the fight I refer to was Dillian Whyte. So Franklin had his end of the paperwork, and I'm not talking about when Whyte actually fought him. It was a year before that. Remembering that he was the leading name, he'd said he had a contract signed, and then Whyte ultimately decided to face Franklin's stablemate, Otto Wallin, but then pulled out of that fight and then fought Tyson Fury about 4 or 5 months later. So we do have a case where Franklin could have done his end of the deal, and it's actually not that uncommon with different fighters being negotiated with and potentially having signed their end of a deal. Remember, promoters have contingencies. So Franklin, he would have been snapping Eddie Hearn's arm off to get a fight with Anthony Joshua. But I would say he is probably not the fighter that Hearn has been referring to, where Hearn has been saying, I think everyone's going to be happy with the opponent if we can get that opponent. I think Jermaine Franklin fits into the, well, okay, this is a decent tune-up type of fight, but it's maybe not quite Otto Wallin versus Anthony Joshua. Wallin just has a little bit more sort of pull and clout given his previous fight with Tyson Fury. Although you can argue in terms of the opposition, you've got Dillian Whyte having fought Jermaine Franklin being a harder fight than any fight that Otto Wallin has had in recent years. So we'll see where this goes. But Jermaine Franklin seems to be suggesting he is going to get the fight. And there has been some other news circulating, which I'll cover in another video, just talking more broadly about the Joshua situation, where it suggests that Joshua and Franklin is a potential goer. But then again, we heard a couple of weeks ago it was McKean meant to be the name that was all locked in, and that went all dead pretty quickly. David Higgins, the former promoter of Joseph Parker and his current manager/advisor, is not happy with some of the criticism of his fighter that has been levelled at Parker. So he says, we're happy with the win. And this is after his win over Jack Massey. Parker was the 4th fight from the top of the bill of the Eubank Smith pay-per-view card. I'd say only New Zealand could conjure a negative out of that. It's all a bit tall poppy. And what he's referring to there is in the past, and I think this is a well-worn and probably tired narrative at this point, but there was a habit of when New Zealand's biggest stars were burning bright, they would be criticised by the public and be under that spotlight, and sometimes maybe unjustly. But we have a case where Joseph Parker, coming off a loss, his star is not shining so brightly anymore. He handpicks a guy in Jack Massey, cherry picks a guy in Jack Massey for a tune-up, vows to beat him up and stop him, and brutally, and he doesn't. It ends up going to a boring decision. So I know that it's easy for David Higgins to get all bent out of shape, and I've seen some of the Parker window lickers also saying, he won, so what? Doesn't matter what happened in the fight, he still won. And ultimately, winning is the most important thing. But also, you have a history here with Joseph Parker delivering a lot of stinkers in his career. Since he's got to what we would consider fringe world level / world level, because he's not always fighting at the world level. This fight here is not a world level fight against Jack Massey, but he stunk the place out. Stunk the place out against Junior Fast, stunk the place out against Hughie Fury, stunk the place out versus Alex Leopai, stunk the place out versus Razvan Kajanu. Should I continue? There have been several disappointing performances by Parker in his last number of years as a heavyweight fighting at a decent level. So there is, rightly in my view, going to be some criticism of a lackluster performance. And it seems to be we're in some sort of weird, bizarre PC society today where people can't have an opinion. And Higgins has always been good to just trample over anyone who throws a little bit of criticism Joseph Parker's way. And so too some of the Parker fanboys who don't want to admit Parker didn't perform as well as he should have. He's got the skills to do much better. And sure, Massey probably performed better than most people expected, but Joseph Parker was one-dimensional. He was slow, didn't throw combinations, and just looked out of ideas. And it's not for the first time. And as boxing fans, we look at these fights and observe what happens. And boxing is a what have you done for me lately sport. Parker got knocked out and then blamed it on being sick. And now what are they going to use for an excuse here? And this is what really gets me sort of sick of people who are involved in boxing, who want the plaudits when there's a good performance, but cannot suck it up and take the criticism when there's an egg laid by their fighter. That wasn't a good performance by Parker. There should be criticism leveled at him for that lack of a true performance. Are we meant to believe that Joseph Parker is some unbeatable top 10 heavyweight on the back of that? Give me a freaking break. So Higgins continues. The reality is Joseph has just come off a very hard fight against Joe Joyce, a knockout loss, and he won nearly every round against a very negative opponent. So what are we saying here, David Higgins? That, because Parker fought Joyce a few months ago, that is the reason he didn't perform well here? You and Parker wanted to be out so soon, and if he didn't perform because of that, well, that's on you. That's on Parker. That's on the ambition to want to get back so far. Fight a blown-up cruiserweight and collect a check against that guy. And this is the thing as well. I would say, because I'm a New Zealander, it sort of seems to be I'm not meant to say anything negative about Parker and the circumstances around his camps or anything because I'm a New Zealander. And that's absolute BS to me. Because this channel is a heavyweight channel that covers heavyweights at all different levels. I see something, I say something. It's always been that way. I just call it how I see it. And some people, they love it when I'm praising their fighter, but they get certainly salty when I start turning the aim on them if there is something to actually talk about. So Higgins continues though, my instructions from Joseph are he wants to fight again as soon as possible. We're obviously going to fight someone tougher next time and step it up again. Perversely, the way this last fight could be viewed, it could help me do my job. The big names like Dillian White, Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz Jr. may see Joseph as easier now. But we know that if Joseph does perform at his best, he can beat anyone. Well, I know some people may make that narrative, but the problem is, with Joseph Parker just not being that entertaining most of the time, who wants to see him? And that's his problem now. He's trying to transition to be a more bulked up fighter, losing speed, and one of his best attributes, and he's never been a big puncher. He's never been an excitement machine since he got to world level. Yeah, he was banging out journeyman for fun, 2013 to 2015 sort of thing. Pulling the wool over the fans' eyes in New Zealand by facing journeyman and waiting Daniel Martz, etc. But the thing is, his style now does not lend itself to people going, I want to see Parker. That's great. How many good performances have we really seen in recent years? Since, 2017 or something like that? 2? A controversial but exciting fight with Dillian Whyte, and then Derek Chisora 2, where he beat up a clearly washed Derek Chisora. Apart from that, it's been very little to get hyped about as a Joseph Parker fan. And I think the thing is, a lot of people have been sort of just peeling off over time because they expect more and they're given less. Anyway, we're going to move on because, it really grinds my gears that Higgins has got the audacity to basically say either people don't know what they're talking about or it's because it's tall poppy syndrome. No, it was a pretty crappy performance. And David Higgins just accepted it. Boxing fans, and it's not just New Zealanders, the world over, thought Joseph Parker underwhelmed. And it's a very big question whether he's actually a top 10 heavyweight anymore. If he fought like he did against Jack Massey, against actual top heavyweights, well, he better watch out. Simon Kean has been confirmed by Eye of the Tiger management to be facing Eric Molina. So this will be on a card that's headlined by Christian Mbili, and it will be taking place on the 23rd of March. So this fight was already meant to have happened, but Simon Kean pulled out in November. He was meant to be on the Makhmedov card in December, but he had a back injury. So they're obviously keen to make this fight for some reason. Eric Molina is pretty faded and jaded at this point. Simon Kean, who knows what version of Kean is going to turn up one fight to the next. Very tentative, but Molina can crack. And because McKean has been looking so vulnerable, I mean, hard to say if, he can actually get out of this without taking a couple. Because if Molina connects, he can hurt him. You've got PBC's Lenier Pero. He will be back on February the 11th. He has announced on his social media. I'm not sure of the opponent as such at this point. You've also got Peter Kadiru. He's back in Germany on the 25th of March. He unexpectedly knocked out by a journeyman his last time out. And also on the same card, you've got Viktor Jurk. He will be on that card too. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.